Welcome back to Who Are You Now? If you're listening right now, I want to invite you to sit in your body first. Not to fix anything, not to get anywhere. Just notice that you're here. This is the beginning of season 3, and I want to share right away that this season begins a little different on purpose. Not because we're avoiding change, but because so much of real change doesn't happen through effort. It happens when the body finally feels safe enough to stay. This podcast has always been about navigating transition and listening for what's true. But this season, we're not starting with insight or action. We're starting with safety. Many of us have done a lot of work, thinking, understanding, pushing ourselves to grow, and still feel tense, guarded, or tired in our bodies. That's not failure. That's a system that's been doing its job. So for this season, we're letting the body lead. We're slowing down enough to feel what's here, to reconnect with sensation, and to remember that your body isn't something to manage or overcome. It's a place you're meant to feel safe and settled. There's nothing you need to do today while you listen. Just notice what lands and let that be enough. This season isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home. Now that we've named safety, here's where we can gently look at why it matters. We all carry our stuff, but most of the time, it's not the actual events or circumstances that feel heavy. It's the emotion attached to them that can quietly overwhelm the nervous system, especially when it's been under prolonged stress. Worry is a big one. It lives in the should've, could've, would've space. Carrying that kind of worry about everything and everyone creates fatigue. So does the pressure to perform or to fix the thing your mind tells you. If I can just fix this one thing, everything else will fall into place. But that's not usually how it works. Fixing often leads to more worry and more things to fix. When you look closely at the emotions that weigh us down, worry, fatigue, pressure, they all share something in common: the need to control something outside of ourselves. Underneath it all is a fear held in the nervous system. I believe that when emotions are simplified, they tend to move from one of two places: fear or love. Fear drives worry. fatigue, and pressure. Love shows up as trust, faith, and a willingness to stay with the unknown. And this is where safety matters. When the body and the nervous system begin to feel safe, fear no longer has the same place to live. That is why effort hasn't worked the way we hoped. Have you ever noticed that when effort comes from fear, the outcome is never truly satisfying? Not quite complete. You don't get that exhale of relief. And that's because the next fear rises in its place. The nervous system learns to scan for the next thing to fix in an attempt to feel safe, rather than actually settling into safety. So the nervous system stays in a loop of vigilance and protection, quietly telling itself, we are not okay, so we need to stay on guard. And that's why so many of us are exhausted from doing all the right things. If you're like me, you might sit with things for a long time, not reliving them, but looking at them gently, almost as if you're not the one inside the experience. That distance allows the emotion attached to it to soften. It lets the moment be what it is instead of something that needs to be fixed or resolved right away. And when that softening happens, something important becomes clear. Not as a concept, but as a felt experience in the body. What I'm about to name isn't a checklist or a strategy. It's simply what becomes true when safety is present. Change does not begin with willpower. The nervous system decides what feels possible before the mind does. When the body does not feel safe, insight cannot land. Awareness without safety can feel like pressure. Growth without safety can feel like self-abandonment. Have you ever been in that place where you know exactly what you want to do, but then you don't do it? You may even know why you want to do it. And yet, there's something you can't quite put your finger on that stops you from stepping into action. Or maybe you do it for a while, but not consistently. And you're frustrated that it doesn't stick. A boundary, a routine, a thought pattern. This is not laziness. This is not resistance. This is not failure. This is the intelligence of your nervous system at work. When what you want doesn't align with how your body experiences the action, the nervous system naturally slows down, often through thought, hesitation, or avoidance. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it learned to do: protect you when safety isn't fully present. I've noticed in my own life that when I try to force clarity, when I stay in my head, analyzing or strategizing, things actually feel tighter. There's more effort, more pressure, and less movement. But when I slow down and stay present with what I'm feeling, without needing to label it or to fix it, something different happens. The intensity softens. Not because the situation changes, but because I'm no longer fighting my experience. And from that softer place, the next step doesn't usually arrive as a big answer. It shows up quietly as a knowing, as a readiness, as a sense of what feels possible next. For many of us, this disconnection didn't start recently. It started early, long before we had language for it. We weren't always taught or shown how to pause, check in, and listen to the body before taking action. In some homes, bodies weren't safe. In others, emotions weren't welcome. And in many, survival meant staying productive, capable, and composed. So we learned to live from the neck up. We let the mind take over decision making because it was efficient, reliable, and protective for the nervous system. Leaving the body wasn't a mistake. It was adaptation, achievement, caretaking, responsibility, and performance became ways to endure and ways to stay regulated in environments that didn't always feel safe. When we couldn't control whether we felt safe, we focused on what we could control. Over time, that way of living becomes normal. This is how many of us learn to cope, manage, and function. It worked until it didn't. But functioning isn't the same as inhabiting. The body never actually leaves. It waits. It holds what hasn't been met yet without urgency or demand. And returning to the body isn't about force. It's not about pushing for clarity or reliving the story until you get an answer. It's not about demanding that anything move forward. It's about allowing safety to be built slowly on your own terms and at the pace your nervous system can trust. Safety is not something you think your way into. It is something the body feels over time. Trust is built through consistent, gentle presence by you, with you, not through someone or something outside of yourself. Sometimes we get a glimpse of safety through another person, an experience, or a moment that brings relief. It can feel like, this is it. This is what safety feels like. And naturally, we want more of that feeling. But no person or external thing can endlessly hold that role for us. When we rely on something outside of ourselves to provide safety, it often turns into a cycle of highs and lows, seeking, grasping, losing, and reaching again. What if the work isn't to chase the feeling, but to build the container? What if we can turn inward and begin creating a foundation that doesn't need to be fed by anything outside of us? The body opens when it is met, not managed. And what I mean by that is this: you do not have to feel everything. You do not have to go digging. You do not have to trust your body yet. Being with sensation without fixing builds trust. Slowness is not stagnation. Slowness is regulation. Trust grows through presence, not effort. It grows in the moments you notice sensation without needing to interpret it. In the moments you stay with discomfort just long enough to feel that you're still here. In the moments you don't rush yourself out of what you're feeling. And when you don't react to it in order to push it away. That is how safety becomes embodied. That is how the body learns it doesn't have to brace. That is how trust is built. As we move through this season together, what we're really exploring is reconnection, not correction, not how to fix yourself, not how to push through, but how to begin listening again from the inside out. We'll be touching on breath, not as something to perform or to control, but as a way the body regulates itself when it feels supported. We'll explore movement, not as fitness or discipline, but as a relationship, how you meet yourself in motion. We'll talk about strength, not as armor or endurance, but as capacity. The ability to stay present with what's here. We will look at embodied ways to self-nurture, not as another thing to get right, but as simple lived practices that support your nervous system. Ways of relating to yourself that create steadiness over time, that help build a container strong enough and gentle enough for us to live, grow, and deepen without being forced. And we'll spend time with stillness, not as a collapse or avoidance, but as presence, as a place where clarity quietly begins to emerge. Throughout the season, the thread remains the same. When safety leads, clarity follows. When safety leads, action becomes clearer. Readiness comes after regulation. As we close today, I want to remind you, there's nothing you need to do with what you heard. You don't need to apply it, analyze it, or turn it into action. If anything stood out, let it settle rather than solve. Let it land in the body instead of the mind. Let your body decide what stays. Awareness is enough for today. Safety is built slowly. And it's already beginning. Our shift has ended for today.